No problem, I will craft part 1 of your story right here exactly as requested. Around 1400 words. In simple natural English. No punctuation marks like. No AI, feel human tone, emotional and engaging. No policy violating content. No common character names like Marcus, Sarah, etc. It was one of those ordinary evenings that start out calm and end up turning your whole world upside down. I had just come back from work, exhausted, my feet aching, my mind buzzing with the kind of noise only a long day in a crowded office can create. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the street and painting everything in that soft golden light that makes even the most boring neighborhoods look peaceful. I was fumbling with my keys trying to unlock the front door when I heard someone clear their throat behind me. I turned around and saw my neighbor standing there. He lives 2 houses down, an older man, quiet, mostly keeps to himself but always waves when we pass each other on the street. His name is Mr. Khan, but I just call him Uncle like everyone else on the block does, out of respect, not because we are actually related. He looked different tonight. His usual calm expression was gone, replaced by something tense, almost urgent. He kept glancing toward my house, then back at me, like he was trying to decide whether or not to say something. "You got a minute?" he asked, his voice lower than usual. "Sure," I said, stepping away from the door and giving him my full attention. He took a deep breath and leaned in slightly, as if someone might be listening, even though the street was empty except for a cat lounging on a nearby fence. "Do you have any idea who has been showing up at your house?" he asked. I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "For the past few nights," he said, "someone has been coming here late at night, just standing outside your front door, not knocking, not ringing the bell, just standing there watching." I felt a chill run down my spine, but I tried to brush it off. Maybe it is just kids playing pranks, or someone got the wrong address. He shook his head. "No, it is not like that. This person comes alone, always after midnight, always dressed in dark clothes, and they never move. They just stand there for 10, maybe 15 minutes, then walk away quietly." I stared at him, not sure what to say. "My house is nothing special. It is an old 2-bedroom place with peeling paint and a porch light that flickers half the time. Nobody would choose to linger here unless they had a reason." "Are you sure you are not mistaken?" I asked. He looked hurt for a second, then serious. "I have seen them 3 nights in a row. I even stayed up last night with my binoculars from the window. They came again at 1:27 a.m. Same thing, same spot." I thanked him and promised I would look into it, but inside my chest my heart was pounding. That night I could not sleep. Every little sound made me jump. Was that a footstep outside, a car slowing down too close? I checked the locks twice, made sure all the windows were shut, even pulled the curtains tight. But nothing happened. The house stayed quiet, the street stayed still. The next morning I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe my neighbor was just being overly cautious. Maybe his imagination was playing tricks on him in the dark. Still, something about the way he spoke stuck with me, that look in his eyes, that careful way he chose his words. By the afternoon I had made up my mind. I needed to know for sure. I went to the electronics store and bought a small hidden camera, one of those tiny ones that look like a regular wall clock but record everything in high definition. The clerk showed me how to set it up, how to connect it to my phone so I could watch the live feed anytime. When I got home I installed it right above the front door, pointing straight down at the porch. It blended in perfectly. You would never guess it was a camera unless you knew what to look for. That night I sat on my couch with my phone in hand, refreshing the app every few minutes. Nothing happened until well past midnight. Just when I was about to give up and go to bed, the screen flickered slightly, then a figure appeared. My breath caught in my throat. It was a person, all right, tall, slim, wearing a dark hoodie pulled low over their face. They walked slowly up to my porch, stopped right in front of the door, and just stood there. No movement, no sound. They did not try the handle, they did not look around, they just stared at the door like they were waiting for something or someone. I zoomed in on the screen, my hands were shaking. "Who are you?" I whispered to the screen. The figure stayed for exactly 13 minutes. I timed it, then without warning they turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness at the end of the street. I sat there frozen long after they were gone, my mind racing through possibilities. Was it someone I knew, someone from work, an old friend trying to get my attention in the weirdest way possible? Or was it something worse? I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? Someone stood outside my house and did absolutely nothing. That is not a crime. So I did the only thing that made sense. I decided to keep watching. Night after night I checked the feed. Sometimes nothing happened, other times the same figure returned, always at the same time, always doing the same thing. By the fifth night I could not take it anymore. I needed answers. I made a plan for the next time they came. I would be ready. I would open the door and confront them face to face. No more hiding, no more guessing. What I did not know then was that the truth was far stranger than anything I could have imagined. And once I found out, there would be no going back. The days started to blur together. After that, every evening I would come home, check the camera feed, review the previous night's recording, and try to make sense of what I was seeing. I began noticing little things, the way the figure always stood with their weight on one foot like they were tired, or how they sometimes tilted their head slightly as if listening for something inside the house. One night it rained hard, thunder cracked across the sky and lightning lit up the street in flashes, but even then the figure came. They stood there soaked through their clothes, clinging to their body, unmoving as the rain poured down around them. That was the night I really started to worry, not just about who they were but why they kept coming back. What could possibly be so important that they would stand out in a storm just to look at my front door? I started asking around quietly, did anyone else notice anything unusual? My other neighbors just shrugged. Most of them went to bed early or worked night shifts and never saw anything. I even walked the block a few times late at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the person before they reached my house, but I never saw anyone suspicious. Everyone I passed looked like ordinary people heading home or walking their dogs. The strangest part was that nothing else felt off. My house was never broken into, my mail was never touched, nothing was stolen or moved, everything inside stayed exactly as I left it. So why this silent nightly visit? I thought about setting up more cameras around the backyard, on the side gate, maybe even one facing the street, but I did not want to draw attention. Installing too many security devices might scare the person away before I got my answers. Instead, I focused on preparing myself mentally. I practiced what I would say when I finally confronted them, calmly, firmly, without anger. I reminded myself that maybe they were not dangerous, maybe they were lost or confused or dealing with something I could not understand. Still, I kept a baseball bat by the door just in case. The tension started affecting my sleep. I would wake up at 1:26 a.m. every night, heart racing, expecting to see the figure already there. Even on nights when the cameras showed nothing, I could not shake the feeling that someone was watching. Work suffered too. I found myself distracted during meetings, staring out the window, wondering if tonight would be the night they finally did something different. My friends noticed I was quieter than usual. When they asked if everything was okay, I just smiled and said I was fine, too much work, that was all. But it was not fine. Deep down I knew this could not go on forever. Something had to give. Either the visits would stop or I would have to face whatever was waiting on the other side of that door. And then on the seventh night something changed. The figure came as usual right at 1:27 a.m., but this time they did not just stand there. They reached into their pocket. My fingers tightened around my phone. I leaned closer to the screen, holding my breath. They pulled out a small object. It was hard to tell what it was in the dim light, maybe a key, maybe a note. They held it in their hand for a long moment, looking at it, then slowly they placed it on the welcome mat right in front of my door. My heart hammered against my ribs. "What is that?" I whispered. Before I could decide whether to run outside and grab it, the figure turned and walked away faster than usual, disappearing into the shadows almost immediately. I waited 5 full minutes just to be sure they were gone. Then I crept to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped onto the porch. The air was cool and still. The street was empty. There on the mat lay a small folded piece of paper. I picked it up with trembling fingers and unfolded it under the porch light. There were only 3 words written in neat, careful handwriting. "I miss you." That was it, no name, no explanation, just those 3 words. I stood there frozen, trying to make sense of it. Who misses me, and why leave a note like this instead of just knocking? I checked the paper for any clues, a watermark, a scent, anything, but it was just plain white paper like you would find in any printer. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat at my kitchen table staring at the note for hours. I miss you. It felt personal, intimate even, but also sad, lonely. For the first time I wondered if this person was not a threat at all. Maybe they were someone from my past, someone I had forgotten or pushed away. But who? My mind raced through old memories, friends from school, relatives I had not seen in years, even an old flame I had not spoken to in over a decade. None of it fit. And then a thought hit me so hard it made my stomach drop. What if this has nothing to do with me at all? What if they are not here for me? What if they think someone else lives here? I sat there staring at the walls, wondering if I should call the police, show them the note, the video footage, but what would that solve? Would they just file a report and leave me alone again with more questions than answers? No, I decided I needed to see this through myself. Because whoever was out there was not just some random stranger, they were connected to me in a way I did not yet understand. And I would not rest until I knew the truth. Even if it broke me after I found that note with just 3 words on it. I could not sleep at all that night, felt longer than any other. I kept turning the paper over in my hands as if the back might suddenly reveal some hidden message, but there was nothing, just blank white space and those quiet words, I miss you. The next morning I made a decision. I would not wait for them to come again. I would stay up and be ready. This time when they showed up, I would open the door before they could leave. I spent the whole day preparing. My mind was sharp even though my body was tired. I checked the camera feed every few minutes, making sure it was still working. I charged my phone fully so it would not die in the middle of the night. I even moved a chair close to the front door so I could sit quietly in the dark without being seen. As evening fell, I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you are about to jump but not knowing what is below. Midnight came and went. The street stayed silent. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but I did not look away. Then at exactly 1:27 a.m. there they were. My breath caught. They walked up the path just like before, slow, steady, deliberate, but this time something felt different. Their shoulders were lower, their steps heavier, like they were carrying a weight I could not see. They stopped in front of the door and just stood there, same as always. This was my moment. Before I could change my mind, I stood up, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened the door wide. The figure froze. For a long second neither of us moved. We just stared at each other through the dim porch light. The hood still covered most of their face, but I could see the shape of their jaw, the curve of their cheekbones. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice coming out softer than I expected. They did not answer. Instead they took one small step backward, like they wanted to run. "Wait," I said louder this time, "please just tell me why you keep coming here." They hesitated, then slowly they reached up and pushed back their hood. My heart stopped. It was a woman. Her hair was longer than I remembered, her face older, more tired, but there was no mistaking those eyes, that gentle curve of her smile, even now filled with sadness. "It cannot be," I whispered. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You do not recognize me," she said softly. "Of course I do," I said, my voice cracking, "but you are gone. You have been gone for years." She shook her head. "I never left, not really." My mind spun. How is this possible? People do not come back from the dead. That is not how the world works. But here she was standing right in front of me, real, breathing, alive. "Are you a ghost?" I asked, half joking, half terrified. She gave a small sad laugh. "No, I am just a person who had to disappear." "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do that to me, to everyone?" "Because I had no choice," she said, her voice dropped to a whisper. "They were watching me. They would have hurt you too if they knew I was still alive." "Who is they?" I asked. She glanced down the street like someone might be listening even now. Then she looked back at me with an urgency that sent chills down my spine. "Your father, he was not who you thought he was." I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" Your father worked for people who do terrible things. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He found out something he should not have known, and when he tried to expose them they came after him, after us. But the accident, I said, that was real. I saw the news, I saw the photos. She shook her head again. There was no accident. They staged it, they made it look like a crash, but it was planned. They wanted everyone to believe we were both gone so they would stop looking. So you faked your death? I asked, stunned. Not by choice, she said. They gave me two options: disappear forever or watch you die next. I chose to vanish. All these years I have been watching from a distance, making sure you were safe, making sure they did not find you, because if they ever realized you were still alive and asking questions, you would be in danger too. I felt dizzy, like the ground was shifting under my feet. Everything I thought I knew about my past, my family, my life was suddenly wrong. Why now? I asked. Why start showing up now after all this time? Because they are getting careless, she said. One of them made a mistake last week. I saw someone watching your house, someone I recognized from back then. They are starting to suspect you know something, or maybe they just want to make sure the loose ends are truly gone. Loose ends? I repeated, feeling sick. You, she said gently. You are the only one left who can finish what your father started. What did he start? I asked. He collected proof, she said. Documents, recordings, names, dates, everything needed to bring them down. He hid it somewhere safe, somewhere only you would know to look. Me, I said, but I do not remember anything like that. Think, she said. Think hard. Did he ever give you something strange? A book, a toy, a key, something he told you to keep safe no matter what? I closed my eyes, trying to remember. My father died when I was young, but I do remember one thing. He gave me an old metal lunchbox, the kind kids used decades ago. He told me never to lose it, never to show it to anyone. I still have it, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It is in my closet. Her eyes lit up. That is it? But I never opened it, I said. I thought it was just a keepsake. You need to open it now, she said. Tonight. What if it is nothing? I asked. Then we are no worse off, she said. But if it is what I think it is, you will hold the key to everything. I looked at her, standing there in the dark, rain beginning to fall around us, her face pale but determined. This woman who I thought I had lost forever was asking me to trust her one more time. Okay, I said, stepping aside. Come in. She hesitated, glancing behind her again, then she nodded and stepped across the threshold. Inside, I led her to the living room. She sat on the edge of the couch like she was afraid to get too comfortable. I went to my bedroom and pulled the old lunchbox from the back of my closet. It was dusty and dented, the paint chipped in places but still locked tight with a small rusted latch. I brought it into the living room and set it on the coffee table. She leaned forward, eyes fixed on it like it might explode. Do you have the key? She asked. I shook my head. He never gave me one. Then we will have to break it open. I went to the kitchen and came back with a butter knife, not much of a tool, but it was all I had. I wedged the blade into the seam and twisted gently, at first, then harder. The metal groaned in protest, then with a sharp click the latch gave way. I lifted the lid slowly. Inside was not food or toys or old photos. It was a stack of papers folded neatly, a small digital recorder and a single key attached to a tag with a number scratched into it. She picked up the recorder with trembling hands, pressed play. A voice filled the room, my father's voice. If you are hearing this, he said, then I am already gone and you are in more danger than you know. Do not trust anyone, not the police, not your neighbors, not even family. Keep the safe until you know who to give it to. The recording ended. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she looked at me, her eyes full of sorrow and hope. You have a choice now, she said. You can walk away, pretend you never opened this box, live your life in peace. Or, she continued, you can use what is here to finish what he started and risk everything. I looked down at the papers, the recorder, the key. All my life I thought I was just an ordinary person living an ordinary life. But now I knew the truth. I was never ordinary. I was always part of something bigger. I sat there holding that old lunchbox like it was made of glass, afraid to move too fast, like it might shatter and take everything with it. The papers inside were covered in neat handwriting lists of names, dates, places. Some pages had maps with circles drawn around buildings I did not recognize. Others had numbers that looked like codes or account details. The key felt heavy in my hand, cold and solid. The tag had a number scratched into it, 217. My father's voice still echoed in my head from the recording, "Do not trust anyone." I looked up at the woman sitting across from me, the woman who looked like my mother but could not be her because my mother was gone, buried under a headstone I visited every year. Yet here she was, breathing, real, alive, watching me with eyes full of fear and hope. "What do we do now?" I asked. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, hands clasped tight like she was praying. "Tell me everything you remember about your father," she said, "not just what he said but how he acted, what changed before he died." I closed my eyes, trying to go back. That time felt so far away now, blurred by years and grief. "He was quieter than usual," I said. "He stopped laughing as much. He would sit at the kitchen table late at night staring at his phone like he was waiting for bad news. He started locking his office door even when he was home." "Did he ever mention anyone specific?" I asked. She nodded. "One name came up more than others, a man in a dark suit who visited once unannounced. Your father was furious after that. He told me to pack a bag just in case." "Do you know who that man was?" I asked. She hesitated. "His name is not important right now. What matters is where he works and what he controls." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small folded photograph. She handed it to me. It showed a tall modern building downtown, all glass and steel. I had passed it 100 times without ever thinking about it. "This is their headquarters," she said. "Everything starts and ends there. They own companies, banks, even parts of the government. People disappear if they ask too many questions." "And my father asked too many," I said. "Yes," she said softly. "He found proof they were moving money through fake charities, using them to fund illegal operations overseas. He thought if he gave the evidence to the right people it would stop, but he was wrong." "They do not stop," I said. "No," she said, "they just get smarter." I looked down at the key again. 217. "What does this open?" "A safe deposit box," she said, "at the First National Bank downtown. It is under a fake name your father set up years ago. He told me if anything ever happened to him I should wait until you were old enough to understand, then give you this." "But you never gave it to me," I said. "Because I was scared," she admitted. "Every time I thought about coming back something stopped me. A car following me, a phone call with no one on the line. Once I saw a man watching your school from across the street. I knew they were still watching, so I stayed away even though it broke my heart." "I believed you were dead," I said, my voice cracked. "I know," she whispered, "and I am so sorry for that." We sat in silence for a long time. The rain outside had turned into a steady patter against the windows. The only other sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Finally I stood up. "I need to see what is in that box." "Not tonight," she said quickly. "Too risky. They might be watching the bank already. Wait until morning. Blend in with the crowd." "But I cannot wait," I said. "My whole life has been a lie. I need to know what he left behind." She studied my face, then nodded. "Okay, but we do this smart. No rushing, no mistakes." We spent the rest of the night going over the documents, trying to make sense of the codes, the names, the locations. Some things were clear, others made no sense at all. One page had a list of dates next to amounts of money. All transfers happened on the same day each month like clockwork. Another had a single sentence underlined twice: "Trust no one, not even the ones who say they are helping." That hit hard because right now the only person helping me was someone I was still not sure I could trust. Morning came too soon. Gray light seeped through the curtains. I had not slept at all, but I did not feel tired, just wired, like my body was running on something stronger than coffee. We ate a quick breakfast, toast and tea, nothing fancy. She kept glancing out the window, checking the street. When we were ready we left the house separately. She went first. I waited 10 minutes, then followed on foot. The bank was only 20 minutes away, but it felt like walking into enemy territory. Every person on the street seemed suspicious. Every car that slowed down made my pulse jump. Inside the bank it was quiet, polished floors, soft lighting, people in suits moving with purpose. I walked straight to the counter, heart pounding but face calm. "I have a safe deposit box," I said. My voice sounded steady even though my hands were shaking. The clerk smiled politely. "May I see your key and identification?" I handed over the key and my driver's license. She checked the number, then led me down a hallway to a private room. "This is where you will access your box," she said. "You have as much time as you need, just press the button when you are finished." She left and locked the door behind her. Alone in the small room, I took a deep breath, then I inserted the key, turned it and pulled open the drawer. Inside was a single folder thick with papers and a small USB drive. I opened the folder. The first page was a letter addressed to me. If you are reading this, it means I failed, but you did not. Tears blurred my vision as I read on. He wrote about how proud he was of me, how he hoped I would grow up kind and brave, how he never wanted me to live in fear. But he also warned me, the people I am fighting do not play fair. They will use anyone they can to get to you, your friends, your teachers, even people you love. Then he wrote something that made my blood run cold. "There is one person you can trust completely. She will find you when the time is right. She looks like your mother because she is your mother." I dropped the paper. It was true. She really was her. Not an imposter, not a lookalike, my actual mother, alive all this time. I grabbed the USB drive and the rest of the papers, stuffed them into my jacket and pressed the button. Outside she was waiting on a bench pretending to read a newspaper. "Did you find it?" she asked without looking up. "Yes," I said, my voice thick with emotion. She finally looked at me. Her eyes searched my face and she must have seen the truth there because she nodded slowly. "Now you understand." "I do," I said. We walked away from the bank side by side, not touching but close enough to feel each other's presence. After years of believing I was alone, I had my mother back. But the joy was shadowed by what came next. Because now I held proof that could destroy powerful people. And they would do anything to keep it hidden. Even kill again. As we turned the corner, I saw a black sedan parked at the end of the street. 2 men in dark clothes sat inside watching. She saw them too. Her grip tightened on my arm. "Keep walking," she whispered. "Do not look back." We did not speak again until we were 3 blocks away and certain no one was following. "What now?" I asked. "Now," she said, "we decide who to trust with this evidence, because if we give it to the wrong person it will disappear, and so will we." I thought about the letter, the warnings, the years of silence. Then I remembered something my father wrote on the last page. Sometimes the truth needs a spark to start the fire. Maybe I was that spark. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. And finally let the world see what they tried so hard to bury. And it was time to find out what that was. Even if it changed everything. After we left the bank, I could not stop thinking about that letter. The words kept playing in my head like a song I could not turn off. "She is your mother." All these years I carried grief like a stone in my chest, believing she was gone, and now she was walking beside me, breathing real alive, her hand brushing mine as we moved through the crowd. But there was no time to process it, no time to ask all the questions burning inside me, because those men in the black car were still out there, and they were not just watching, they were hunting. We took a long winding route back home, changing buses twice and walking through busy markets just to be sure no one was following. When we finally reached my street, we both scanned every parked car, every open window before stepping inside. Once the door was locked behind us, I turned to her. "Okay," I said, "what do we do with this?" I held up the USB drive. It felt small but heavy, like it held the weight of everything. She sat down at the kitchen table and spread out the papers we had taken from the box. Her fingers moved quickly, sorting documents into piles. One stack had names, another had bank records, a third had photographs of people I did not recognize standing next to well-known public figures. "This is bigger than I thought," she said quietly. "How much bigger?" I asked. She looked up, eyes serious enough to bring down half the city if it gets out. "Then why did my father hide it instead of going public?" I asked. Because he tried, she said, and it almost got him killed the first time he went to the authorities. They laughed. Then 2 days later his office was broken into, all his files disappeared. He realized then that the corruption went deeper than he imagined. Even the people meant to protect us were part of it. So he hid the real evidence where only family would think to look. I said. Yes, she said, and he trusted you to know when the time was right. But how do I know who to trust now? I asked. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, there is one person. Your father mentioned them in his notes, someone high up in the federal office, someone clean, someone who has been trying to build a case for years but never had enough proof. Do you know who it is? I asked. She nodded. But we cannot just walk in and hand this over. We need to be smart. They will be watching every official channel, every news outlet, even online posts. If they see us coming, they will shut it down before it starts. So what do we do? I asked. We reach out quietly, she said, through an old contact, someone who owes your father a favor. That night we stayed up late planning. Every step had to be perfect. We wrote a short message, no names, no details, just enough to get the right person's attention. We sent it through an encrypted email service using a fake account created just for this moment. Then we waited. 2 days passed, nothing happened. I started to wonder if the message had been lost or ignored. On the third morning there was a knock at the door. My heart jumped. I looked at her. She gave a small nod and stepped back into the hallway, out of sight. I opened the door slowly. A woman stood there, mid-40s, sharp eyes, calm expression. She wore a simple coat and carried a briefcase, nothing flashy. Are you the one who sent the message? She asked. I did not answer right away. How do I know you are who you say you are? She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver coin. She held it up so I could see the engraving on one side, a tiny bird in flight. Your father gave this to me 10 years ago, she said. He told me if anyone ever came asking about the truth to show them this. I recognized it instantly. He used to keep it on his keychain. I stepped aside, let her in. She introduced herself not by name but by title, a federal investigator working undercover for years trying to untangle the same network my father had uncovered. I showed her the USB drive, the documents, the photos. She examined everything carefully, her face unreadable. This is more than I hoped for, she said. Finally, we have enough. But what happens now? I asked. Now, she said, we move fast and quiet. We copy everything, send it to secure servers outside the country, then we go public through independent journalists, people who cannot be bought or silenced. And what about us? I asked. You will be protected, she said, but you must disappear for a while, new identities, new location, until this blows over. I looked toward the hallway where my mother stood listening. Can we stay together? I asked. The woman hesitated, then nodded. If that is what you both want. Relief washed over me. For the first time in days I felt like we might actually make it through this. Over the next 48 hours everything moved quickly. The investigator brought in a small team of trusted people. They worked in my living room, copying files, setting up secure channels, arranging safe transport. I packed a single bag, just clothes, toiletries, a few photos, nothing else mattered anymore. My mother did the same. She moved quietly, like she had done this before, which she probably had. The night before we were set to leave, I sat on the porch alone, staring at the street where everything began, that spot where the figure used to stand, watching, waiting. Now I understood. Every night she came, not to scare me but to protect me, to make sure I was still safe, still whole. I heard the door open behind me. She stepped out and sat beside me. Ready? She asked. I am not sure, I said, but I know I cannot stay. She put a hand on mine. You are stronger than you think. Maybe, I said, but I would rather be ordinary. There is no ordinary left for us, she said softly, not after this. We sat in silence, watching the stars appear one by one. The next morning before sunrise, a plain white van pulled up to the curb. No markings, no logos, just 4 wheels and a promise of safety. We got in without looking back. The drive was long and quiet. We changed vehicles twice, took back roads, avoided tolls and cameras. By evening we reached a small house near the coast, far from the city, far from everything I had ever known. The investigator met us there. This is your home for now, she said. Stay off social media, do not contact anyone from your old life, not even friends, they could be watched. We nodded. She handed us new identification cards, new names, new histories. Then she left. Alone in the quiet house, I walked through the rooms feeling like a ghost in someone else's life. My mother found me in the kitchen making tea. Do you think it will work? I asked. Will they really be brought to justice? She poured hot water into her cup and watched the steam rise. I do not know, she said, but your father believed it was possible, and that is enough for me. I thought about all the nights I spent wondering who was watching my house, all the fear, the confusion, the sleepless hours. Now I knew. And somehow that made it easier. Because the truth was no longer hiding in shadows. It was in our hands. And we were not going to let go. Even if it meant living in silence. Even if it meant never going back. Because some things are worth more than comfort. Some things are worth fighting for. And this was one of them. As night fell again, I stood at the window looking out at the ocean, waves rolling in steady, endless. Somewhere out there the world was still turning, people were laughing, eating, sleeping, unaware of the storm about to break. But soon they would know. Soon the truth would rise. And nothing would ever be the same again.